Thank you for purchasing the gallery wall mockup templates by CAI, and welcome to the video guide in which we'll show you how you can access and modify your templates to create professional looking industry approved mockups for two-dimensional artworks that can be placed on the wall. We're here in our file guide and we're going to start with the first step, installing the free editing software Photoscape X via the App Store, which you can do using this particular link, which will navigate us to x.photoscape.org. Here we are, very simple. If you are using Windows, you must click here. If you use Mac, you have to click here. I'm using a MacBook, so I'll click here. We want to view it in the App Store. And here we see it, and one has to click install first. I have it already installed, so I'll click open. So welcome to Photoscape X. First and foremost, we have to make sure that we are in the editor mode. Then we must make sure that we are in folders. And now we can actually browse through all the folders on our device. For instance, here I can go to my images, my desktop, my documents, and my downloads. And what one has to do here is simply navigate to where the downloads are stored. For instance, if you just have downloaded them, most likely they will be in downloads. If you have saved them somewhere else, then you have to navigate to that folder. So let's go to the mockups. Now that we have found our mockup templates, let's select the mockup that we want to edit by clicking it here in the left column. Now we can start editing the mockup. We want to add our artwork by going to the top right, click Insert, and select Image. Now we can select the image that we want to use to create our mockup. So let's navigate to our artworks and select our artwork. It is very important to create good mockups that we have good images of our works. We have dedicated a complete tutorial, free article and free video on how to photograph your art professionally using just your phone. So if you do not have adequate images, I strongly recommend having a look at that video or article next, taking good pictures and then using them with these mockups. In this case, I inserted a completely cropped image, meaning that the entire image is the artwork. This of course can only work if you have cropped out the artwork nicely and if the artwork is square or rectangular. If you have an artwork with a frame or an unconventional shape, I strongly recommend using a background remover. One that I personally like to use is Remove BG, which is a very good online software which has worked very nice when it comes to cropping out artworks from its environment. Please note that to download them in high resolution, you will have to purchase credits, but they are very affordable. And actually, when creating these mockups, because the work is relatively small in our image, we can actually use the free files as well to have a good effect. So let's illustrate this. We're going to upload an image and we're going to use this work by Imi Knöbel. See how the background remover did a perfect job at identifying the edges of the artwork. We're going to download. So if you want high resolution, we have to pay a credit. However, if we use the free version, the resolution is still sufficient to use it in our template. So let's download both to illustrate this. We go back to Photoscape and let's put our Van Eyck self-portrait on the left. And we insert both artworks by Imi Knöbel here. So here we have the high resolution one and here we have the free option, and it's actually almost the same. This one is a little bit sharper, which is of course better. However, in this mockup, we could perfectly use this one instead. Now, that being said, let's go back and continue creating our mockup with our Van Eyck self-portrait. Now that we have the image in place, we need to make sure that the size is lifelike. A good reference to do this is the figure who is standing here. If it is a mock-up where there is no figure, we kind of have to make an estimate based on the ground floor and how high it is up on the wall. Very simple, look at your artwork when it hangs on the wall and try to replicate it in the mock-up. If you're just using a completely white wall, then it doesn't really matter, and then you can go full scale here. But in our case, we have to match it with the viewer. A good point of reference is, for instance, that the average height of a head is around 20 centimeters. 20 centimeters is around 7 to 8 inches. On the other hand, you can also use the legs, which are on average between 75 to 85 centimeters long, or in inches that would be 30 to 35. So let's say if the viewer in our mockup is female, let's say that's 75 centimeters or 30 inches. And if it is a male person, a rather tall person, then we can go for the legs as 85 centimeters and 34 inches. Now let's place the artwork at the center. With some mockups, it makes sense to put it a little bit closer, and sometimes can even look pretty nice when it is a bit further away. Here we're going to go for the center. Now we are going to add our shadow, which makes it look more lifelike. We have to select the artwork and then go to the right where you have this option, drop shadow. Here with the drop shadow, it is very important to be subtle. You can see that this shadow is just slightly visible, and that's actually sufficient. If we go with too big of a shadow, we immediately see that it is a mock-up, that is quite artificial. Whereas with a small shadow, it actually looks very lifelike. Play only with the distance, and I advise you to keep the angle at 0, blur at 30, the color black to have a dark shadow, and the opacity at 20 for an even spread of the shadow. In this case, I think 10 is perfect for this medium-sized artwork. If you are working on our wall mockup where there is no floor and no viewer visible, to make it even more lifelike, we're going to deselect the drop shadow, we're going to duplicate our image, make it slightly smaller, have it just at the bottom of the image, and now we're going to send it backwards, below the image. And if we now add the shadow to the artwork that is below the image, make it a little bit more distant, so the shadow is visible, then we'll see that the shadow stops here and not goes up to here, which makes it actually look even more realistic. Because if the lightning is coming from above, then it means that the light can pass through here, giving it a more realistic shadow. However, if you just go for this drop shadow, it feels a bit more artificial. However, both options work fine. Now that we're happy with our mockup, we can go to the bottom right and click More and Save As. We want to save our image as a PNG file for various uses. However, if you want to use it on your website, a WebP file can work because the resolution will remain the same, but the image file is a lot smaller, which can make your website load them faster. Save them in a location where you can find them easily, and definitely also add the title of the artwork in the title of your file name. And that is how you create your mockup. Feel free to click Edit and Crop to edit the mockup further. For instance, like this also works well. For instance, for an Instagram post to have a more vertical orientation here. So feel free to play around with this and convince others by sharing them on your website, Instagram, social media, newsletter, or in your applications and submissions. Good luck.